Secondary schools are usually room and board. It's something that people don't really, they might not know. I didn't know. So in Zambia, it's sort of, the educational system is set up exactly like the British, because of course the British is the country that colonized, and they think everything needs to be done the British way because, the British know. So of course they're going to have uniforms, and whether or not they can afford uniforms. I mean, it's ridiculous because they can't, but they got to have them to go to school. Another thing is room and board schools. So when I say secondary schools that are room and board, they're usually built maybe in the 60s or thereabout, and they were built by the British, and they were usually made to hold maybe 500 students. But now the Zambians, which the need, and there's such a lack of schools, and the need is so great, most of those schools have 1,800 students. And so in a situation where it's room and board, they will be sleeping on the floor. Then they'll have a little wooden platform that another one sleeps, and then they'll have another. If you've ever been maybe on a train where you sleep on the train, and they have those beds that pull down and they're hooked to the wall and they have a chain on them, and you can fold them up during the day. So anyway, they're stacking them up, three students where it used to be one student. And even the food, I mean, to feed 1,800 kids, what they do is the students keep a bowl. They have a little tiny cubby hole that's theirs, and they can keep a picture of themselves in a bowl. There's not much room for anything else, but so they get their bowl out and they go down to what used to be the cafeteria. But I must say that all of these schools are just broken down. Nothing has ever been done since the 60s. And usually in the cafeteria there aren't any tables and benches, so they sit on the floor. And they'll line up to, of course, I've told you about nshima. Nshima is a type of a mush that's super, super thick, so that it has the consistency of Play-Doh. And they will hold up their bowl, and they will slap a glob of nshima. It doesn't come out like oatmeal. It's actually a ball, and they give them a ball. So now let me tell you about how they cook the nshima. They've been very ingenious, and they cut a hole in the back of the kitchen, what used to be the kitchen, because of course none of the electric ovens or pot, nothing works. Nothing works. You'll be lucky if they have a copy machine when you get to the high school. Usually not any electricity, off and on electricity. So here they are needing to feed 1,800 kids. So they cut a hole in the back of the building of the kitchen, and they shove logs into the hole, and they have a fire going. And as they need the fire to get hotter, they shove the log in farther, and this log is burning, and they've got a fire going. Then they've built a brick counter, sort of like a countertop, and it has a hole in it. And they put the big pot there. It's a huge pot, and they stir it with what looks like an oar from a boat. And here they are stirring this nshima till it gets really thick. So thick with that oar. I just call it oar. And now they have a big giant pot of nshima. Then the kids, after they eat, I know I call them kids, but the students, over there it's pupils. After the students get done eating their nshima, they go over to the little stream that's pretty close to the school and wash their bowl and go put it back in their cubby hole. So room and board is probably not what you're thinking of as room and board, but they're so glad to be there. Now, I haven't been able to get statistics in the northern province, and they're very different than the southern province, which is the capital city, Lusaka. But I would guess, if I had to guess, maybe 80% of the village children are not able to attend secondary school. Could be even higher than that, but so these 20% are really happy to be there. They're sort of the chosen few, if you will, because this is the only way that if they could get a job, they need to become educated, and they know that. So here we are helping the secondary schools and the college still, which are students that are becoming teachers. And now we've sent, at this point, this is going to be my 4th trip over. We probably have about, I'd say maybe 20 teachers that are out teaching in the bush. And at this time we paid them $100 a month to go out and teach in the bush. So I'm at the teachers' college, and I look over and I see some commotion over at the little library, and there's students lined up outside the door, and the library is how would I explain the library? Maybe as big as maybe somebody's tool shed, a good sized tool shed. It's not a big building, it's a very small building. And outside they've painted a little sign that says library. And here are these students lining up. And I said, what are the students lining up for? And he said, oh, they're doing their homework. And I said, they're doing their homework? And he said, oh yes, we don't have enough books for the students that they could take them back to their rooms. They need to stand in line, and they need to read their assignment, and then they do their assignment, and then they hand it to the person behind them, because the books cannot leave the library. And of course there's no chairs or tables, and this is the way they do it. They pass the book back to the person behind them, so they're waiting to do their assignments. And of course I told you that it's always a challenge, and you get thinking on that long ride home, your 4 days to get back home again, your mind thinks about what you just witnessed and what you just saw. And I kept thinking, now my husband's a school teacher, he teaches math. My goodness, where do all the math books go? Because I know every 2 or 3 years he's getting a new math book. And where are all those books going? Because they're hardly really used by the time you get new books here. So I started thinking, well, maybe I could gather up all of the used textbooks that all of these high schools don't want, and I could send books over to that little college, and we could do math and science and reading, and anyway, it was a really exciting thought.